All right, people. Review of the week time. So, lot to get into, lot to talk about. We obviously got to start. Now, there wasn't a lot of boxing on this weekend. There really wasn't. There was the Queensbury show on Friday night, and it wasn't. I don't actually think it was a matchroom show. It just seemed like some matchroom fighters were out on a card in the zone. I didn't watch it last night. Now, the show that was on Friday night was in the York Hall. It was a Frank Warren show. He's been doing a lot of, I'll say a lot of, but he's been doing shows in the York Hall with either Denzel Bentley headlining on a Saturday or they're kind of like next gen shows. Maybe a little bit above that because on paper some of the fights should be seen as somewhat competitive. They're not necessarily. But Warren's been doing a few of them over probably the last 2 years is when he kind of started doing it. And Frank Warren is certainly doing more UK shows than the likes of Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom. Now, Ben Shalom, obviously, he's only based in the UK, but his stable is quite thin of talent. So he's not been putting on as many shows. With Eddie Hearn, I mean, this year he's put on some shows in the US. He's got the Canelo show. Well, actually, no, sorry. Does he? Berlanga. Oh, sorry, he does with Berlanga. I had to think, was he Golden Boy or Matchroom? He is Matchroom. He obviously has that show next weekend. But the UK shows have been, they've not even been monthly. They've been, very sporadic over the year. Whereas Warren with the Magnificent Seven, with some of these shows, he's been more active certainly than the other two in the UK market. Now, I seen Masood Abdullah. He got a win over George Stewart. Now, I didn't see the full fight, but I did see the last round, and it's a very interesting one. The referee ignored the towel with the last few seconds to go. This is always a kind of contentious point where people say if the towel comes in, the referee is obliged to stop it. Not necessarily. The rules normally are only the referee can stop the fight. The towel coming in is an indication from the corner that they would like the fight stopped, but it then does fall on the referee to be able to jump in and do it. Steve Gray was known for that. I remember he did it with Lewis Ritson. And I think his explanation was that if it was headshots, he would have done it, because it was body, he let the fight carry on a little bit longer. Mickey Van, a referee in the UK, he ended up actually refereeing in Ireland because he was over the age, think, of retirement in the UK. So he refereed a couple of shows in Ireland, but he was known for kind of towel comes in, see you later, goes straight back out if he doesn't feel it's the right time. So they don't have to take the towel as, a smoking gun, right, wave it off. They can ignore that. And the referee did in this situation. Referee let it go, ended up going to a decision. 118, 110 on all the scorecards. Masood Abdullah, I like what I see from him. He looks a good little talent. He really does. And in the main event, because again, I didn't really see anything on this, we had Sam Noakes versus Gianluca Sigla. I think it's how you say it. That's definitely Gianluca. It's definitely an Italian name. As I expected, Sam Noakes getting the win via stoppage made him retire in 8 rounds. As I said, when I was looking at this guy's resume, he's 34 years old, not a puncher. There was a lot of things on that resume where I was looking and I was thinking, ooh, that don't look good. In terms of fighting someone like Sam Noakes, I was looking at it like, do we really think that that's going to be a guy who's going to give much resistance? He didn't in the end, and that's really the height of the boxing that was on over the weekend. I like to think this is the calm before the storm, we'll call it, because it seems now over the next couple of weeks it's just going to be fight after fight. We've got Canelo this week, we have Joshua the following week. I'll touch on that Matchroom show very briefly. So the Matchroom show at the end of the month is still going ahead. I mean, in one sense I respect Eddie Hearn for persisting with it, but this show just seems cursed. I mean, he's had 2 pullouts via injuries, and both were the main events. The show has gone from Sheffield to London, back to Sheffield. So obviously this was meant to be headlined by Dalton Smith, and once he pulled out, they said, okay, we'll keep the show going and we'll move it to London, to the Copper Box. Johnny Fisher was on the undercard against Rudenko. He was then going to headline. I was thinking, okay, well, I knew he was going to be on the show anyway against Rudenko, so alright. Not necessarily the worst fight in terms of a matchmaking point of view. Rudenko is somewhat durable, so he's better than an Alan Babic. It's a bigger step up, and it will gauge a little bit more where Johnny Fisher's at, because as I said, people looked at the Alan Babic fight and were like, it's like, mate, Alan Babic was knocked out and around by, I can't remember his name now, his name is gone from my head, but Coley knocked him out in a round. So it's like, Rosansky. So, it's like, it's not like Alan Babbage was ever a world beater. He wasn't. I mean, he was in big trouble by that big French guy a couple of years ago. And that guy was a journeyman. And he had a journeyman's record. So, Babbage has never been the best, certainly not, in terms of punch resistance, defense, everything. So, for him to get a first round knockout win, a lot of people expected an early night. Against Rudenko would have told us a bit more because he's a vet. He's durable. He knows how to survive. He has been getting stopped lately, but he is still... And he's been getting stopped by guys like Jared Anderson, who are much, much, much better, much further developed than Johnny Fisher. So it would have been a good step up to see just where he's at. Won't be happening. Apparently it's a torn bicep or something like that, which is a... that's not a good injury to have. That's really not... I don't know what exactly the recovery time for. I remember Usyk, I think, tore his bicep a few years ago. He was meant to fight, I think it was early 2019, and he ended up having to push back to October. When I say early, I'm talking about March, April, thereabouts. So torn bicep, not ideal. It will keep Johnny Fisher out of the ring indefinitely, you would imagine. So I thought Eddie Hearn was going to scrap that show or see what he could do. Now he's persistent with it. Rihanna Dixon is going to fight Terry Harper as the main event in Sheffield. As I said, sometimes when a show has this many pullouts of injuries, especially if it's one thing for undercards, and that will weaken the undercard, no doubt, if it was happening on the undercard. But two main events, I think that's a sign that maybe that show has a bit of bad luck attached to it. Just my opinion. So September is looking a busy month, and we're starting to see that. Joshua versus Dubois. We are 2 weeks away. We are 2 weeks away from this fight, and I can see people are really getting into this. I can already see it because you see more people talking about this fight now in the weeks building up to it. I'm certainly getting excited for it. I certainly think we are going to see, as long as this fight goes, and I've done my keys to victory, I've got other things planned on that fight as well. 3 reasons why I think both guys win and lose. I think that this fight is going to catch fire very quickly, very early on. And as I said, I think this fight is going to be flippin' epic. I really do. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting fight. I think it's going to have moments where you're going to be thinking Joshua is on course to win, and Dubois, not going to say he's necessarily going to, drop Joshua, but he'll have those moments where you're just like, huh? I think this fight is going to be very good. I really do. I'm really, really excited, really looking forward to this fight. I think it's going to be brilliant. We're less than 2 weeks away. Apparently it's going to set a record attendance for a boxing event in the UK. 96,000 fans are expected to be in attendance, which is it's a big number. It's a really big number. So, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be flipping brilliant. And I look forward to getting a few more videos done on it because I think it's something that we can spend a lot of time talking about. I see the trailer was released ahead of this fight. Now, I did watch it, and I gotta be honest with you. I would always say, in terms of the trailers I've seen from the Saudis, the best so far has been the 5v5. That for me was brilliant. I loved that trailer. I think Frank Warren just embraced it. Eddie Hearn was alright, but Frank Warren really, you could tell Frank Warren, he knew some rough characters back in the day. A guy from North London, he embraced that. I thought that was my favourite. For me, that was the best. I really enjoyed that one. This is a weaker one, I think. And it's still a very, very good trailer. The amount of money, honestly, the Saudis have to be putting in just to these trailers alone is ridiculous. Because honestly, when I look at some of them, I know they're only a couple of minutes long, but you're thinking, how much did it actually cost to film that? To do all that and everything? It's like, holy crap. They don't play around with these. They really don't. I wish they would, with these Saudi shows, and I'm going to reiterate the point again because I notice it with fans, and I couldn't give a crap about this. The music acts. The music acts. If they're going to do these big trailers, fine. That's good. It enhances it, when you're getting the build up to it, you watch it, and I'm all for that. You want to put on these shows, and they are lengthy, which is something that, again, is a topic for another video. But the flipping music acts at the end, I'm not an Oasis fan. They're trying to do an Oasis reunion. Don't give a crap about Oasis reunion. Never liked them, to be honest with you. Never liked their music. But it's not just them. Eminem, some of the Eminem songs I like, but it's the the act before the main, I just don't see the point in it. And the amount of money they're probably spending on that, if they're like, I look at that, right? And I look at the amount of money they're probably spending on Liam Gallagher and potentially Noel Gallagher, and I just think, could you not have put that money into the show instead? Because you do realize these are boxing fans, and most of them just want to, especially when it's before the main event. You know, you always find when the co-main ends, everyone is just like, let's go, main event, and then there's this big long goddamn wait. You have this music act, and you're just like, really? And I think that obviously if Oasis do reunite at Wembley, a lot of people are just going to go purely for that. They might stick around for the main event, but I worry a lot would go purely for that. That's just a side note there. This is an interesting one. So, Adam Azim will face O'Hara Davis in the Copper Box on October 19th. That's a very, very good fight. That is a very, very good fight. I touched on this very briefly in Midweek Report, and I said that O'Hara Davis only a few days ago was refuting that claim. And I was kind of like, was that what happened? It is strange to me how it went from Harlem Eubank and then just, okay, not Harlem Eubank, to now O'Hara Davis, and only a few days ago O'Hara Davis refuted it. It is a bit of a strange one. In terms of the fight itself, actually, I prefer this fight to the Harlem Eubank fight. No disrespect to Harlem Eubank. I've seen him fight live. I've seen a couple of his fights, and he's never impressed me. He's never really impressed me. He really just... there's nothing that jumps out at all about him. There really isn't. And it's not like you could say he does the basics really, really well that you can make up for. It just looks a fairly run-of-the-mill fighter, to be honest with you. I remember very early in his career, I think he had a very contentious decision. Might have even been on a Matchroom show or one of them, but he never really... There's nothing about Harlem Eubank that jumps out at you. O'Hara Davis is... Look, he's coming in off the back of a first-round knockout defeat to Ishmael Barroso. That just sounds awful. Especially Ishmael Barroso at 40. It just makes it even worse. It just makes it even worse. And the fact that it was a technical flaw, but you still walk onto a shot and getting taken out by a guy who is 40. That's not good. And I do wonder how much is that taken out of O'Hara Davis, physically and mentally. That's the second time in his career he's been knocked out. The loss to Jack Cattrall, of the three losses, that's the one that did him the least amount of damage because nothing happened in that fight. And it's a fight that he can always look back on and say, well, I think I won. And to be honest with you, like I've said it before about that fight, neither man deserved to win that fight. It was awful. It was absolutely flipping awful. It was a disgraceful fight. It really was. And on paper, it actually sounded like a decent enough scrap. But it really was. It was absolutely awful. Neither guy deserved to win. It was a horrendous fight. But yeah, he could feel a little bit aggrieved that, the scorecard, I think one of the scorecards was really wide in Jack Cattrall's favour. That's a loss that, he took no damage whatsoever. Literally no damage. And, you could fight the next week against an Adam Azim after that. That was 6 years ago. Since then, he's not fought the greatest of opposition. I felt he was, against Tyrone McKenna, that was and McKenna is no great chick, but that kind of showed the level he was at. Like, he's really at that kind of level of a Tyrone McKenna or just slightly above it. When he was younger, 4 or 5 years ago. Now he's older. He's got more miles in the clock. I remember that fight he had against Vasquez. Vasquez back in I think it was in New York. It was on one of those, remember IFL and that promotional company? The one. They used to do them on IFL. And I remember he raised Miguel Vasquez's hand after that fight because he knew he lost that fight. But Ian John Lewis was the scoring referee for that fight, gave him the nod. Yeah, O'Hara Davis, I question how much he has left. However, big puncher. Big puncher. Even Josh Taylor said that when he fought me. He was like, yeah, the power is there, but very poor technique. Very poor technique from O'Hara Davis. Let's have a look-see as well and see what's going on. But fundamentally, I do like the fight. I do actually quite like the fight. Let's see what else we have here. Now, this one right here. Naoya Inoue has publicly told Junto Nakatani that he must first beat Takuma Inoue, the WBA and WBC bantamweight world champion, world title unification fight. Oh, in a unification fight, apologies. Before he can think about moving up and challenging him for undisputed. Right, how do I make of that? That is very reminiscent of the Klitschko era in the heavyweight division, where, you know, you beat Vladimir, you'd have to rematch him, and then if you beat him in the rematch, you have to fight Vitali, or vice versa. Corey Sanders beat Vladimir Klitschko, he had to fight Vitali Klitschko. I know it was for a vacant title, but nevertheless, he still had to do it. And you get reminiscence of that, and I didn't like that. However, you could argue and make the case that Naoya Inoue is actually saying, well, no, actually become undisputed. Make this fight bigger in Japan. You know, you beat my little brother, Takuma Inoue. And Takuma Inoue is I've seen him fight several times. He's certainly not as good as Naoya, but I don't think he's not particularly good. Like, yeah, he's a champion, but there's nothing jumps out at you about him. He's fairly run-of-the-mill. Nakatani, I mean, if you're Takuma Inoue, you'd be thinking to your brother, you'd be like, shut up, because you want me to get my ass kicked? Well, clearly by the sound of things. Maybe he's trying to build that fight so when it does move up, it's undisputed against undisputed, both in Japan, both Japanese, I should say, but in Japan. That would be huge in Japan. Undisputed super bantamweight versus undisputed bantamweight in Japan, and they're both Japanese. I can see his logic there. I can see the logic of Inoue in that one, to be fair. Chris Billam-Smith versus Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez is now reportedly being finalised for a unification fight that will be a Riyadh season Latino night in Saudi Arabia on November 16th. I heard rumours about that. I heard some of the fights that were rumoured on it, and this was one of them. Now, Zurdo has fought in Saudi Arabia before. He fought Bivol, I think his name there, Dimitri Bivol in Saudi Arabia 2 years ago. And yeah, I actually thought that fight would be I actually thought that Zurdo fight, I wasn't picking him to win, but I thought it would be more competitive than the Canelo fight. It wasn't. So he's not got the best record in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. I mean, Billam-Smith is a natural cruiserweight. He's been at the division longer, but Ramirez has operated at a higher level, albeit at 168 and 175. So, interesting fight. No sign of him fighting Nakatani anytime soon. Oh, no. Oh, no. None of that. But, yeah, there you go. Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol. US fight fans, you've really hit the jackpot with this one. Artur Beterbiev Dimitri Bivol will be broadcast as a one-fight, non-pay-per-view event on ESPN Plus in the USA. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant for the US fans. It really is, because this fight is going to be epic. The rest of the card, topped by Shakur Stevenson versus Joe Cordina, will be a separate pay-per-view. I can imagine that will tank, which is excellent. Turkey Al Sheikh previously said will be priced at $15 US. That's the one thing I will say that does go for. That's probably more than a Shakur Stevenson pay-per-view is worth. In fact, it's about $15 more than a Shakur Stevenson pay-per-view is worth. But you might get lucky because it's so cheap that it might actually do good numbers. But I would imagine that Shakur Stevenson's not even that big a name in the US. So, yeah. The Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois fight will be $20 US pay-per-view. I would assume worldwide $20 because he's got dollars written here on Twitter. So that's not a bad price, to be fair, actually, $20. And obviously, if you're already a subscriber on DAZN, you do get a discount. You do, just saying. But yeah, I like the fact that they are bringing the pay-per-view prices down. At the end of the day, DAZN did sell themselves as the end of pay-per-view, but if they're bringing it down, hopefully that's the start of things to come, and it will culminate in maybe extremely low prices or just maybe none at all. But 20 quid, I think that the Crawford show was about £25. You see, I always say whenever a pay-per-view is being shown in the UK, but it's a US show, you do kind of have to think, like, should it really be so high? Because it's one thing to have it on, and, you know, Joshua fighting Daniel Dubois in the UK, fair enough. It's on at unsociable times. You know, you're staying up On a good night, could be 3:30, 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. On a really bad night, it's not even worth your while going to bed. Dylan Whyte calling Derek Chisora out for a trilogy fight. Dylan Whyte says, "Hey, Derek Chisora, stop horsing around and let's do the fight. I'm not interested in talking. I'm just interested in putting you to bed." That's what Dylan Whyte has to say. So, I said in the wake of Chisora versus Joyce, preferably I'd like to see Chisora retire because that's a great way to go out. It really is. It's a great way to go out. A win over Joe Joyce in a fight I didn't think he'd win, quite frankly. Great way to go out. He's talked about having another 2 fights, one in Manchester and one in his native Zimbabwe. Fair enough. If he's to have one more fight in the UK, Dylan Whyte is probably the only guy to do it with. Really. Because Chisora, although he's had times where he's looked a little bit better, at least he's been active. At least he's fight ready. Dylan Whyte, in nearly 2 years, has fought 3 rounds against Christian Hammer in a hotel in Castlebar. I'll just say that again. Dylan Whyte, in the last 2 years, has fought 3 rounds in a hotel in Castlebar. Yeah. So who's more ready for battle? We don't know what way Dylan Whyte is going to be, because at the end of the day, he got knocked out by Tyson Fury 2 years ago. He legitimately beat Jermaine Franklin, but it was close. It was competitive. It was worryingly competitive. Because Franklin's not a bad fighter, but he's not you're not looking at him and thinking, oh God, this guy's going to cause trouble in the heavyweight division. You're not going to do that. So, with Dylan Whyte, I don't really know where he's at. With Chisora, I kind of know that, he can't go for 3 minutes, but he can still do something. He can still hold a shot to an extent anyway. Dylan Whyte, I don't know where he's going to be at. So right now, winnable fight for Chisora. Why not make it? Why not make it? I seen Ryan Garcia. Let's see what he says. Ryan Garcia has blasted Terence Crawford and called him out. Terence Crawford really hasn't beaten anyone other than Errol Spence, who went through a car crash. Crawford ain't like me. He's an overhyped bum. I'm sorry. Somebody had to say it. You're an overhyped bum. You something suck, bro. Begins with an F. You're not entertaining. You're boring as something. Come see me in the ring if you think I'm saying something. Right. That's what Ryan Garcia had to say. Right, where do we start with this? Ryan Garcia, the man who was talking about come and see me in the ring. Well, no one's going to be seeing you in the ring until April next year because you're banned, for one. Crawford's best wins. Sean Porter, good win. Yeah, you could say he retired, but good win. Kell Brook. Worse for wear, Kell Brook, yes, but nevertheless, Kell Brook was useful. Errol Spence is the best win. And yes, he's right. That was a post-car crash, Errol Spence. You have to attest to that. Then you look at the rest of his resume. At welterweight, it's not crazy good. You have Anisian. You have Jeff Horn. Yes, remember him. At 140, Josh Taylor's resume at 140 is better because the division was stronger when Josh Taylor went on his run. It was quite weak when Crawford did it. Is his resume the best I've seen? And obviously, Israel Majamov, who is a good fighter. Is his resume the best of the best? I would say no, it's certainly not. It's not a Canelo resume or anything like that. What's Ryan Garcia's resume look like? The only real proper win he had has now been overturned. I know people will say he still beat Devin Haney. Officially, he got the decision, but it's now been overturned. So he beat Devin Haney. If you want to say he beat Devin Haney, you can say that, but he beat Devin Haney and then failed a PED test. Now he's banned. So I don't know what Ryan Garcia's top of. Is he more entertaining than Terence Crawford? Yeah, he is. I think he is. Ryan Garcia, he started his career at lightweight. He's now going to 154. Man, this guy, Ryan Garcia, just tone it down. Tone it down. You're going to end up getting yourself into more trouble. I believe you me, he's already in the you-know-what as it is now. What else do we have here? Let's have a quick look-see on boxing scene before we do anything. BBC's first non-pay-per-view date is hopefully finally signed and more to come. Apparently it's going to be October the 19th. They did a pay-per-view with Tank back in when? June? Yeah, they're not doing much. Jazza Dickens returns with a win in Dubai. I saw Jazza Dickens last year get horrendously knocked out. I don't think he should be going anywhere near the ring after that knockout. And it was in Dubai where he got honestly, it was a horrific knockout. What else? Edgar Berlanga, Canelo overlooking me adds fuel to my fire. I don't think anything is gonna, man, he is gonna get battered. He is gonna get battered. Anthony Kakache explains why Warrington is the perfect foil. Well, he's coming in off the back of 2 back-to-back losses, a KO loss at that. He's never fought at 130, and yeah, he's not won a fight since. What's the last time he won a fight? Was it the Martinez fight? The last fight he won. What else do we have here? What else do we have here? Kevin Brown test positive, but test. I was thinking like this guy test positive. I was like, no. Yeah, there's not really much else there. There's not really a great deal else on there. So I am going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you again for 20,000. We've just gone over to 20,100. At the time of recording, we have 20,140. So we're making inroads. The road to 30k starts now, and let's hope it's a smooth little road, a nice little motorway, nice and smooth. We can go faster. We can get there nice and quickly. I hope. I'll leave it there, people. Lads, lassies, hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, you haven't already. Peace.